welcome to episode 4 of the GVST Wellness podcast. This podcast, I think I'm going to name Pam and the Tazadi Ministers.
Love it.
So I have, So I have Jill and Jane here, and they are just like powerhouse, like women in the holistic and wellness field. So let me shoot it over to you so you guys can introduce yourselves.
All right.
Jane Pierce.
Yes, I'm Jane Pierce. My business is Tarot Jane. You can find me on my website, tarotjane.com. I do a lot of work with Patreon lately. It's been really great to develop these long-term communities where people come to a class every month and we are working together. And of course, I love being at GVST where I teach astrology.
And Jill Rubel.
Jill Rubel Healing Arts. Took many years to coin my name, but why not just keep it Jill Rubel Healing Arts? And you can find me on Facebook, Jill Rubel Healing Arts, and Instagram, Jill Rubel Healing Arts, and my website, Jill Rubel Healing Arts. So just want to keep it the same for everything. I've been doing this work for several decades, and we'll talk a little bit more about what I do, what I hope to return to. During COVID, I kind of had a down low for a while, and so now I'm coming out again.
Watch the table tapping. That's okay. All right. So I always like to start with, like, how did you hear about GVST, or what was your first brush with me or GVST?
It was Charisse. So Charisse Jacobs, who is an amazing tarot teacher, taught me a lot about teaching tarot when we co-taught together. Mm-hmm. She did the real intuitive stuff and I did the more technical background. So I'll tell you about the Tazadi basis of the star card, blah, blah, blah. And she's always throw out the book and let's go. So she started teaching tarot there and I got excited because she was on the East Side. And I was like, I want to come too. So you let me teach astrology and that was really great.
Did you just move back to the East Side?
Yes.
Was that you? Okay.
A year and a half. I've been back on the East Side. I am so happy.
Yeah. Where did you live before?
Farmington Hills.
Oh, okay.
That is not where I grew up.
I forgot that was you because it's it's like how I heard of you before I met you and then when I met you.
Yeah.
So Charisse started teaching with GVST and she would talk about this Jane Pierce. And I'm like, man, I'm going to get this lady. She is going to work here. And so I think I messaged you.
Something like that. We reached out to each other. I was really grateful that it happened. I'd loved the She Hive when it existed before COVID. And just like a lot of people, COVID hit and so many things couldn't stay in person. And I was so eager to be back in person. I love people. I want to be there. I want to be there. Yeah. So very excited to be there in the room at GVST.
Perfect. What about you, Jill?
Well, after I started my website about 3 years ago, I decided I was going to just do this full time. I was in medical industry for over 30 years doing ultrasound in hospitals. But while I was at St. John Macomb Hospital in Warren about 20 years ago, when I had graduated from Energy School, Midwest Academy for Healing Arts, the Integra program, it was trademarked, and it is a licensed and approved school through the Michigan Department of Education. So that enabled me to initially get my first big gig running, developing, marketing, managing a healing arts center in the hospital. And I worked only part-time for 3 years. There, at that time in Michigan, there were over 40 or 50 different hospitals throughout the state that were offering some sort of wellness, well-being, wholeness. There's many terms for it. And my little center, I call it mine, although it was the hospital's, I was even told from the director of finance for the health system that I was the only one operating not in the negative. And I was told when I got let go, because in a period of about 12 months, there was a group of about 40 of us that got together every other month at another hospital. People came from the UP and Muskegon and Traverse City. We met to see what was working in our different locations and how management and community were supporting us or not. And anyway, eventually they all got pretty much closed down, including myself. Yet when I sat in that HR office, the director said, I've never seen anyone more fitted and matched for a job like you're doing. And she used to come down all the time. Everyone came down all the time for things, including corporate heads and the head of the ministry in the hospital and all kinds of things. So it's, as I'm getting back to GVST. So as I've been coming out in the last few years, been trying different locations and different groups and people. And I was teaching a class over at Dragon's Landing in St. Clair Shores. And they said, have you heard of GVST? You got to talk to Pam. She's having a big program, Rise and Shine. And it was her first annual last September. And we're already planning for this year, the second annual in October. And we met and I've been on board. And at this time, I don't have any plans of leaving.
Good.
You may be stuck
That's
with
good to hear.
me.
Good. I'm happy to be stuck with you. So yeah, I got a phone call from Jill. And it was just, so I get a phone call from this woman and she's just like, hey, I've lived in St. Clair Shores and I've been practicing all these healing arts for years and years. Like, I've never heard of you. Like, let's meet up. And so, yeah, Jill came and we had a meeting at GVST. And I remember you asking at one point, well, what do you do? As in like, what is your healing art? And I was just like, what do I do? I don't know. Like, it's like, I'm just so used to sitting in owner, or like, background, putting everything together that I was like, oh.
And that's the magic, because most healing arts practitioners, no matter what realm we're in, whether it's mental or spiritual or physical or emotional or energetic, all these different practices and tools that can help us if we are ready, but it's scary. It's when we talk about doing online marketing, social media, it just kind of makes my heart freak out. I get into the shakes, but that's Pam's magic. She does have other skills and innate gifts, but that is huge. It is huge. And to have a community based on all those parts, it's complete.
I think for a lot of us, we have a day job and we try to develop social media skills, and that is your day job. And that's pretty exciting. I'm really big on having experts. I want to talk to the social media expert. I want to be an expert in my field and not presume that other people aren't. So let me do my expertise and then you do yours and then we collaborate.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting to do it that way for me.
Yes. One of the things about GVST, because it offers something for everyone. And one of the phrases that has been going around is like a YMCA with some spiritual components. But I found this just today in the Good Times of St. Clair Shores, this little bi-weekly paper, and it had this, bits and pieces. Before setting out from his family's homestead, a young man's father pulled him aside and said, there's only one thing any of us ever need to make it in the world, 3 strong bones. 3 bones? The young man questioned with a raised brow. 3 bones, his father repeated, a wishbone, a jawbone, and a backbone. You need a strong wishbone to dream big and imagine a life of endless possibilities. Keep your jawbone intact and ask for help when you need it. Speak your mind when you have to, and raise insightful questions to feed your curiosity and your intellect. And finally, he added, let your backbone be as strong as the courage, effort, and determination you'll need to achieve your goals. Our soul wants us to have wholeness. Our soul wants us to speak our truth, live our truth, to have joyful, but it's anything getting out of our habit.
That threefold thing is so present in all of the organic and long-established practices. You could make an argument that that's the 3 types of elements in astrology. You have the leader or the cardinal, you have the communicator or the mutable, and then you have the fixed or in the backbone where you finish what you started. And looking at that triad, I think we polarize things in American culture, and I actually think that the triad is a more accurate depiction, where there's the leader, the finisher, and the one who ties them together, the communicator. So I'm pretty fond of that. And getting out of the polarity, the right, no, left, right, black, white is, I think, better for all of us.
So speaking from Jane and astrology and the threefold, Jane is a just this amazing tarot reader and astrology. I feel like you're like more than just like a teacher. You're like this professor, engineer, like mother of 100 engineers in this engineer family.
I am.
So anyway, my point being that like I just feel honored to sit here with two ladies who have just these huge backgrounds of knowledge and everything like that. So why don't we get into a little bit, and so I'll start with you, Jane.
Okay, my background.
About your background and the things that you call that you're an expert in, or you feel you're an expert in.
That's so hard. I love starting new stuff, but I started this stuff in the 80s when I was in college. I didn't believe in astrology. And then somebody read something that said, you're obsessed with sex and death and magic. And I was like, that's not true. They're just saying that to flatter me. And my husband, my boyfriend at the time was like, you might be a Scorpio if you think that's flattering. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, maybe I need to know more about astrology. So I started studying astrology, and then I started studying tarot because friends had tarot cards. And I was really good at it, and I didn't think that was right. I wanted to know why I was good at it. So I got determined to go study why. And really, since the mid-'80s, I've tried to study a completely new tradition at least every 5 years. Wow. Sometimes more often than that. But that idea of being new, I love being the expert, but then I'm going to go find another expert and be an expert there. So I've studied shamanism. I've studied Wicca. I was part of Great Lakes Pagan Council at one point. I was part of COG, the Covenant of the Goddess, and the High Priestess of a Coven. And then I did work with shamans in both, did some work with Mateo Empe, who's this amazing woman in Ann Arbor who's been to Peru. And when she says she studies Peruvian shamanism, I mean, she was in the mountains of the Andes practicing and coming back and bringing us traditions. But knowing I could never do that, I decided to study something called post-tribal shamanism, which doesn't culturally appropriate, but takes the shamanic tools and brings them to everybody in a universal way. The Peruvians have a technique, and the Navajo have a technique, and the people in Siberia have a technique, and there is universal techniques with them. So I try to use some of those universal techniques. And
with universal techniques, everything is connected. Yeah. It's all the same, but different. It's like everyone thinks that they have certain shit in their family. We've all got it. It's just different. And so it's just how they all overlap and how they interconnect. And people are people, and all people want to connect. All people need to share. All people need to be validated and heard.
I think so.
And not that as a spiritual coach or a practitioner of any kind or a teacher of any kind in that healing arts umbrella. I mean, complementary and alternative medicine techniques, there's over 200, and they're all listed on the National Institute of Health's
and I want to study every one of them.
Complementary and alternative medicine.
I'm like, I want to do it all.
I was going to say, there's no Sagittarius in your sign, or what?
Oh, yeah, that's my moon. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
I have a Sagittarius moon. I get all excited, and I'm like, let's try something new.
I feel.
Friends of mine, you're learning something else?
Sun,
You're learning something else? Yes, as long as I'm breathing, I just like to keep learning.
And I want that learning to be authentic. I got offered to initiations a couple times in the 80s, and I just felt like, how could you be offering to initiate me? I don't feel like I know enough yet. Not as an imposter, but as a brand new beginner. And so that's when I started learning about Tizadi. Caradwin and Aliva were this amazing couple. They were Dianic Wiccans, which means they did women-only witchcraft. And they were this wonderful lesbian couple when it was a lot less popular to do that. And they taught me Reiki, and they trained me in Tizadi. And so I felt like instead of having this coven initiation or shamanic initiation, what I had instead was an ordination. I was ordained a minister in Tizadi when I was pregnant with my first child. And so I kind of felt like I was both ordained minister and mother. Like my maiden years of searching had moved on to this mother phase of stepping into authority. And so I've worked really hard not to abandon my authority. Certainly didn't abandon my kids and being a mom as I kept going into new traditions. I'm a mom here. I will be a maiden here. I'm a mom here. Can I have a little bit of maiden by being new here? And so I've done that now. And I feel like I'm in the crone stage. It was part of moving back to the East Side. I have no kids living with me full time, and I'm loving my empty nest. And that chance to be a crone and a mentor where I'm no longer so busy doing the work of mom. I don't have to nurture something. I get to explore something.
And I love that I can say, you're definitely a crone at GVST. And it's
you.
like, not an insult. I love that.
And it's something that word scares so many people.
Yeah.
Because just like the stages, the phases of the moon represent maiden and the mature mother, and the crone is, I'm sorry, especially with social media and so many people going outside themselves for information, when things are handed down through storytelling. Storytelling is healing. Storytelling is sharing sage wisdom and experience. And yes, people may be old souls when they say they're young or a child or a teenager, but there's a certain amount to be said for any type of life experience once you are in your 70s or older or approaching that, because there's just hands down, and it doesn't matter whether you've had a very external life or a very hermit life, you still have observed, you still have received input.
Yeah. Astrologically, we'd say that the maiden phase goes to about 28 and 30 when you have your first Saturn return. And then the crone stage starts between 56 and 60 when that next Saturn return happens. So you kind of get this 28, 30 year sections. And there's almost 30 years of maiden, almost 30 years of mother. And then hopefully you get 30 years of crone and make it to 90. But
Yes. And to just recognize, because a lot of people haven't even noticed what they've gone through emotionally or mentally with maturing. I mean, maturity is not wisdom. Wisdom is when we finally get it, that we kept repeating that 10, 20, 30 times, like, okay, I'm 57 now, and I'm going to stop doing that. And that
I think
comes
mature
from
wisdom resembles a lot being too tired to care. Like when you stop, when you've got the pause. I mean, I think that's part of that crone energy. I think our maidens and mothers and our Western culture makes us so busy that we don't stop to reflect.
Yes, there's no pause. There's no time to quiet. And once we do give ourselves that, and to start learning in the teens, when you're in your teens and 20s especially, just to pause, to reflect a minute or two. It's that developing that muscle, that inner being muscle to regroup. So you can embark on the day when those things come at you. Oh, that's okay. I'm not going to sweat the small stuff. We keep sweating the small stuff. I have a friend who is having a milestone birthday this year, and I just realized every time I've wanted to run away, I'm still going there. And then maybe we all don't know, if you're having an issue with your partner, your lover, your coworker, your child, your boss, whatever, you leave. You could leave the country. You're going to find that energy is there with you because you're addicted to it. You haven't managed it yet. You haven't coped with it. You haven't learned the inner world coping strategies to not react.
Like you're going to still get the same life lessons over and over until you figure it out.
That same lesson. Yeah. And that's what we're here about, is life's lessons. It's the easier things in our life that help us get through. But those challenges, that's what we are.
So I'm going to interrupt you because you haven't told us about how you got into Tazati.
Yeah,
I got ordained in 95, and I want to know when you got ordained and what brought you to Tazati.
So I wanted to tell this joke too before we went into the Tazati. So when I see the word and it is spelled Tzaddi, all I think is Zaddy. You know how they like say daddy, but like he says Zaddy. And I just wanted to like laugh about that. That is not what this is. It is Tazati.
It's an international church, non-denominational. There are people that have been ordained through Tazati in other countries. A lot of them are here, and the headquarters is in California still, right? So I was familiar with Caradwin and Oliva because a friend of mine, we'd gone there a couple times to a few of their meetings when we were very on the newbie. This was, I think, just after I'd gotten married. I don't even know if I went through infertility problems then, but
when was that?
This was back in the early 80s, mid 80s. Okay. So you could have even been there. And then I started.
I love thinking about that. Maybe you guys cross paths and didn't know.
And then I started through another way. I found out about Mulberry Farm, which is in Brownstown, Michigan. And I started going to drumming circles.
Their sweat lodges are amazing.
And to sweat lodges. And then they said, well, we're offering, this 3-year program.
Yes.
And I took it, and it costs money. And my husband, he never says no for my things. All my people, okay, Jill, you're doing your thing. So sometimes people won't get you. They may never. But as long as you get yourself and put yourself first. So, okay. So I started going there, enrolled in the program. And the first day, we were in weekends out in Ann Arbor, and we're in this circle meditating, and Jan, the director, is coming around smudging us, and all I'm thinking to myself is, what in the hell am I doing in this program? And she comes and she whispers in my ear, you're going to become a person to develop your power. I'm like, ooh, I didn't quite know what that meant, but ooh, sounds
That's
good.
why you're in this program.
Sounds good. And
Yep.
that is, it's any journey, anyone ever thinking about getting into healing arts practices, you have to do your inner work first.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to get your power and meaning. You aren't going to be knocked over, pushed over. You have a leg to stand on. You don't feel cut off at the knees. You don't feel like your head's going to explode. You just have a sense of self and being at no matter what stage you're in. The maiden, the mother, the crone, but especially crone, man, let's embrace that energy. It is not taboo. It is so good.
I think we slow down so we get more chance to express our wisdom. So we ask ourselves, does it really matter? Do you really care? Let them be them. And that slowing down, I think, is a critical component.
Yeah.
We got to use our brains a lot more than our bodies. I used my body a lot when I was a mom. Carrying babies and doing all that stuff, but now I don't have to work that hard physically.
I'm right in the midst of mother.
Yeah.
So
Yes, you are.
I feel like I'm good at being like, let people be themselves, or what, like I let people be. But man, slowing down sounds nice.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Oh, well, so I went through the program and that I could pay extra and attend more classes to become ordained. So it was quite a big deal.
Yeah, it was.
And tell you, I haven't sweat since. The Sweat Lodge, for those of us, there was 4 of us that got ordained, and the sweat was part of it.
Oh, cool.
Oh my gosh, it was not. It was roasting hot. But
there is some
it was
intense
energetically.
stuff.
There's
Yes.
stuff going through, and we were warned this could be very intense. And of course, okay, we're ordained now, and we can handle this. We're still humans first.
Yeah.
So my husband and I were married at the city hall. And I was really hoping, I'm putting it out there, I've been talking about it, so I'm not hoping, it's going to happen. Summer 2025, we'll be together for 10 years. Well, we'll be married 10 years, together 11. And I want us to have a wedding. And you two are both ordained. And then Jessica York is also ordained, not
that I know
Tazadi.
of. I don't know a lot of Tazadi people. We're international, but there's not thousands and thousands of us in Michigan from any stretch of the imagination.
But in my head, we get married in the church because I know that's important to them. And then we walk outside and the 3 of you marry us somewhere else. So just put that in your calendars.
Some kind of symbolic gesture.
Yeah. So what got you into spirituality? Like, were you always like this? Was there like a key moment?
I had a medical condition.
Oh.
And when the doctor told me, you're going to need to have this, this, and this in the next few years, we walked out. My husband and I said, you watch me. And I crossed over into every type of alternative healing I could. I was going to energy healers and crystal healers and this reader and that reader and all kinds of stuff. And finally, I zoned in on what resonated with me. And that's when these other things started showing up with the sweat lodges and the drumming in that circle and Midwest Academy and becoming ordained, and just everything shifted. That was a crisis. It was a crisis for me.
Can I ask what it was? What happened?
It was endometriosis.
Oh, okay.
And I had to have huge surgery and huge drugs, and then was told, you're going to end up with a complete, total hysterectomy. I mean, it's something
and this
that...
was before children.
Yes, this was before children. And, it's become a real popular topic in the medical field now. And I just changed everything. My outlook on life, my beliefs. I mean, beliefs are just what you give attention to. It's just what you think about.
I love Charisse calls it BS, her belief system.
Yeah. I mean, it can change in a second. Otherwise, why would we've been believing something or reading certain things, and then one day a brochure comes or a book falls off the shelf or someone stops and says something to you and suddenly, that's a big aha, an insight, and something changes in a moment. So a belief system does not mean that you have to be the same way you've always been in that comfortable, familiar zone of which you still feel overburdened, overwhelmed, put upon, disregarded.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you?
It was December 1st of 1979.
Oh, is that a joke?
No, I wrote it down. We just moved to a new house. I was living on the east side in East English Village, and this big, beautiful new house. And there was the first snow of the year, and I was still a kid enough that I had a snowsuit, and I went and laid out in the backyard and looked up at the stars, and it was my first, I would say, transcendent experience where I felt like all of a sudden now I would say I went into meditation. I relaxed in nature. I gazed at the stars, but all of a sudden I started getting a download, and God started telling me things. And is God the right word? I don't know. It was too big it was something that was too big for me to have any words to describe it. Yeah. So I'm gonna call it God. And God started telling me things, like some of them I didn't like. Like God told me I couldn't go to Michigan or Michigan State, that I would not survive with 50,000 teenagers in East Lansing. I was going to be struggling during my teenage years, and I would need people of different generations and different ages in order to survive it. So sorry, you can't go to those schools you thought you'd go to. And I went to University of Detroit, and I loved it. But it was like, some of it was that specific, which is part of how I was like, no, that was God. I've had these arguments with people. They call him God touched. And Raven Kaldera, is a great author, says everybody who's been God touched had their plan upset. And I was like, that's not true. I had my plan. And I was like, oh, my plan got upset when I was 11. So how much of a plan did I really have? Like wanting to go to Michigan because that was cool, and that's where people thought they wanted to go, wasn't really a plan. But if you take it, if I accept that I got God touched young enough that my plan started to not be my plan, because I did form a plan for my life at that point. And it didn't all go the way I wanted to. I wanted to have my fourth child before I turned 35, and I missed it by 2 weeks. I'm not joking. Like, I had a plan. I was going to homeschool my kids until they went to high school, and then my boys were going to go to U of D high, and my girls were going to go. I was still working on that one. And my husband and I kind of talked through the plan, and he wasn't sure about a co-ed Catholic high school or a single-sex Catholic high school, so we agreed to disagree on that piece of the plan. And then I won. And yes, we have done the exact plan. And then we had 4 kids, and then we did this, and then all of the steps. Again, 2 weeks late for I wanted to be not 35, and I missed it.
That's so funny.
And with having that, being God touched,
that's what I was going to ask.
There are so many other ways that can be interpreted, whether it's a God touch, whether it's a spiritual download, whether it's thinking like the mystics instead of reasoning and logic. But even just a couple of weeks ago in a meditation class that I teach, one of the gals wanted to know about meeting her spirit guides. And I thought about that and thought about it. And that's why meditation is still the oldest and the best form of practice. Even if it's a few minutes a day, because the bottom line is that it raises our vibration. It clears out those lower vibrations. It can leave a space where we don't have to ask the question. We will get the information, or we can ask the question. But if we're so distracted from the outer world and can't find that time to still, to quiet, to pause, to hear that, we won't. And then part of being a spiritual warrior is, if we're getting that information, to follow it through trust and faith. And if we don't, why bother asking?
Meditation relies very heavily on the Eastern influence, which has had a big impact on the New Age movement in the U.S. However, I would say prayer is what it was called before meeting that, and particularly in repetitive prayer, where you're saying all of these prayers again and again, or you're singing a prayer, you are entering a trance state with these repeated words. They're not that different than saying a mantra. And so I'm always careful about calling it meditation. I come closer to God by praying. But my prayer brings a meditative state, you could say, or it changes my alpha waves. And in the repetitive prayers, in the singing to the divine, there is less going on in my brain, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So that I hear God
Yes.
Not because I'm quiet, but because it's easy to hear your thoughts when you're singing a song you've sung 1,000 times.
It becomes like in meditation too. It's if you hear a fan going or the snowblower or the lawnmower, it's something when you notice it, the song, the vocalization, you notice it, but you're not thinking about it, allowing in that connection versus prayer like, oh God, please help me. And you're bartering and you're begging. You're in that state of fear.
Well, technically, there's 3 types of prayer, right?
Yes.
There's worship prayer, there's
Yes.
thanksgiving prayer, and there's supplicant prayer, or
Yes.
the gimme, gimme, gimme prayer, the thank you prayer, and then pure worship. So for the most part, I'm talking about the worship prayer,
Yes.
which we're tying to more traditional religions. But if you've got songs that change how you feel, then arguably those are your prayers. They're just prayers to, I will survive, or
I love that you said that, because when you were talking about God touch moments, I was going to ask you if you had a God touch, or if you had a specific one. But before you answer, I feel like mine are, oh my God, I love driving in the car and like singing as loud as I can. And I literally feel like highest vibe,
Yep.
like
Yep.
whatever.
Those are your anthems. Those are
Yeah.
your power songs.
Yes.
Whenever I hear Defying Gravity from the musical Wicked, I have tears streaming down my face. I dance crazy through the house, not just once or twice, but like half a dozen times, because I just fill up with joy and bliss.
Yeah. Which is, what you were talking about.
yeah, and call it a worship song to the
Yes.
human spirit.
Yes, yes. And it's different for everyone, but everyone can find that. And I just encourage people, don't resist it. Don't resist it.
Yeah.
If it's bringing you joy, I mean, doing playful things, doing things that bring us pleasure. Yes, pleasure. Some people don't like that word. To be playful and have fun and schedule that in your day, even if it's just one song, dancing however you want to dance, it is vital to our well-being, because the whole world globally on that conscious, what's that word? I'm missing it. The whole globe is just filled with,
Collective consciousness.
yes, the whole collective is in a very anxious, depressed state. We need more fun and play to lighten up, because we're all sweating the small stuff that, of course, has turned into all the
I
big
agree.
stuff.
I think, if you take Freud's definition of id, ego, and superego, it's our id, it's our child that powers all of our magic. It is our superego that structures and makes the system, and then it's our intelligence that directs the connection between the container and the power. In the same way, we have that threesome there, like the 3 elements or the 3 modalities of astrology. You've got this, like, your limbic system, your emotional system. You're like, I want. There is nothing more powerful than a 2-year-old going, I want it in a grocery store, right? If you can go to God with that level of I want it, your magic's going to fly.
And because for those younger children, they have more energy than any 3 adults combined, and that's why they always win.
That's
That's
the
why
power
they
of it.
always win. And adults tend to give up.
Well, but we're
We get
smarter than them,
tired.
right? So our job is to use our intelligence to direct the energy, use our emotional child to stir up the energy, and then use our function, our structure to contain the energy. Whether that's a candle with the form, and the fire is the energy, and then the light is the where are we directing that candle, or if it's our bodies. The maintenance, the fixed part, the mutable part, and the cardinal leading us, the directing us.
Absolutely.
I kind of get into that.
Then the big question is, people will often say, oh, I don't need a class. I don't need a mentor. I don't need a coach. It's like, you're going to do it on your own. How's that working? I don't know. I know a lot of people. You know a lot of people. Jane, you know a lot of people. It's not the norm for a person to be able to do it on their own.
Well,
So that's why coming together within a community with the class, and it's not accountability that you have to be doing this. It's like, maybe it's just going to make you, inspire you, and engage you to take another step onto that path that is going to create different choices and different outcomes. And that can be scary because when others outside of your own individual person see you growing, seeing you begin to thrive, seeing you begin to be happy for no apparent reason, that's very intimidating. And people just like don't get it. And rather than say, oh, I want to try that, because that's going within ourselves. I mean, yes, they'll go for aids, for working out and supplements and all these external things, but to get that different inner essence, that true essence of self, it's a little bit of a different journey.
So let me ask you guys when, just getting back to our list of questions, because I could let you guys talk forever. And I'm just like, wow, yes. Oh my God.
We're getting
But
it.
okay, so when was the time in your career that felt very rewarding?
Mine felt really rewarding when I was working at the hospital. It was a double-edged sword because two different belief systems of corporate versus non-corporate, but it was making a difference. I was working with individuals. I was working with every department, every shift. I had community programs going on, and everything was working. And it just felt like home, kind of like GVST is becoming.
Aww.
For me, it's the aha moment that I see other people get as a teacher. I taught for a while in the Detroit Public Schools before I had kids. And there is something about the light going on, the aha, the discovery moment that happens that makes me really fed. That makes me feel like something's bigger than me.
Feed your soul.
And it doesn't really matter sometimes what I'm teaching. 5th grade math or breastfeeding support or astrology. At our class last week, somebody had one of those ahas where she was like, oh my God, I saw this happening when you talked about Pluto and Mars and Aquarius. And then I was like, and then the king did that. And I was like, that's the revelation of Mercury coming to Pluto and the hidden problem coming out. And I was like, yeah.
It's so wonderful with astrology with that because astrology is a science. I mean, you can trace back hundreds of years. You can go forward lots and lots of years. I mean, it's a science.
Arguably, it's the longest running study we've ever done in the Middle East. The Sumerians did hundreds of years of writing down comets and stars and planets and what happened. And it's the basis of astrology. Can you imagine for 800 years, these people wrote down what we called star journals or something? I was just, okay.
Whether it's astrology, which is a science, or if it's myth and fairy tale, where we're looking at the hero's journey, which is our journey. Because you asked about book topics, and like with the hero, those are some of my favorite books. It's the hero's journey, a call to adventure, where the person leaves the home.
Yes, but Joseph Campbell's hero's journey is told in astrology. Is told in tarot cards.
Yes, absolutely. So people like and resonate with certain things. I used to tell them at the hospital and they come in, what should I do? I said, whatever resonates with your heart. If you don't like acupuncture, don't get it. If you don't believe in prayer, don't get it. If you want to read some stories or fairy tales, our life is unfolding as the hero's journey because it's those large challenges.
I'm gonna argue with you. Okay, there's also the heroine's journey. I know, right?
Oh no!
So the hero's journey is one version of our life, but it's the hero's journey is the more masculine, go out and conquer the world. It is Luke Skywalker meeting Darth Vader. But the heroine's journey,
like Vasilisa in Women Who Run with the Wolves,
is much more an internal
where she go because
triumph.
We're working on the divine feminine, which everyone Mars energy, action, 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 whereas the Venus energy, no, the other one, the Neptune. I'm new to astrology.
Venus energy is the feminine energy. It's the peacekeeping with Mars' war. Neptune is the planet of intuition and belief.
For the intuition, because, I mean, I've done several book groups that lasted a year and a half, several times, going through Women Who Run with the Wolves, because all these key aspects of what we're given, what is our gift, what journey are we going on, what choices, nothing seems as it is. I wear this key because it has to do with the Blackbeard fairy
For
tale.
those watching, it's
Yeah.
a beautiful black necklace with a key on it.
Antique. And because it reminds me that there's so many keys to open doors. It's to be curious and not fearful of what's on the other side of it. Because we always return home with a gift. Oh, the divine feminine. That's for everyone. It's just because we say it's a divine feminine, those aspects must also be balanced with the
in
masculine.
the Jungian sense of anima and anima, it's
right.
the two sides of our nature.
Right. So we need that nature. One of my friends, she retired 3 years ago. She still isn't getting it, but she's worked for like 45 years. She goes, I think I've just been in my masculine drive with my career for all my life. I said, yeah, nothing for intuition, nothing for downtime, nothing for, not consistently.
Yeah.
And when it's like,
And you're going to feel so much more at peace and one with yourself when you find that better balance.
yes, it's about balance. It's about harmony for all those things that we've experienced, the bad and the good, our strengths and our weaknesses, when they weave the tapestry that sweet spot, that now I get it. Now.
So I have an aha moment I wanted to share from astrology. So my rising is Capricorn and I have Venus in my Capricorn. And so I just realized the other day, I feel like, not that I'm not sweet, but a lot of people meet me and they think like this, like so sweet or something. So like every single meeting I have with someone, or 9 out of 10, if they swear, they'll go, "Oh, I'm sorry, I swore." And I always think, what is it about me that people apologize for swearing, you know?
Capricorn formalness.
And, okay. But I didn't know if it was like that Venus, like, I don't know, something about being like innocent or something.
That's harmony. That swearing is a sharp, hot energy, and Venus is such a peacekeeping. And you do very well keep the peace in a more formal way.
Yeah.
Not that everybody has to love each other, but everybody has to get along.
But I've been noticing that since I started GVST and I have all these kinds of meetings. If someone swears in front of me and they're new, they'll apologize. And I'll
Have I? I don't think so.
yeah, probably not. Yeah, probably not. But like, I don't like, yeah, it happens all the time.
Well, it's
So-
a first impression thing because that's your first house.
Yeah.
Your rising sign is
Yeah.
the beginning of the relationship. It's not who you are once we've known each other for a long time
Yeah.
now.
And I don't know about, I'm sure with you, with your different groups, you just get the vibe of whether you can say a curse word or not. Because sometimes it just kind of is an icebreaker too, that we aren't being so formal and we aren't being so...
Which doesn't help with my formal rising sign. Okay, I get it.
And
So-
it's a rising sign. So as people get to know you, they get really comfortable with you and the formality goes away. I want to say that. You make a comfortable and like, let's all like let our hair down.
Good.
But you gotta get there and get over the little awkwardness
That's
first.
so funny. So let me ask, when was a time in your career or life, if you want to talk about, that was stressful and how did you get by it? Like when did you have a hard time? And
So, do you guys remember when we all lost power in August of 2003?
oh yes.
That was honestly and truly one of the worst weekends of my entire life.
Oh.
First of all, I started getting preterm labor. I have 3 children. They were sick and puking. I lost power. I called my husband earlier that day and I was like, this is going to be a rough weekend. The kids were already sick. Please get the rental car to come home before. And my husband didn't listen to me. And so when I called him and said I lost power, and he said, well, I'm in Toronto and we did too. So here I am with no power between Toronto and Detroit, 3 puking kids, pregnant. Water went bad. Remember, we lost power so much that we didn't have water. Oh my God! And my husband tried to drive home, and the car died halfway home from Toronto. I was just like, the Great Amish Weekend was not a good time to be
Great
pregnant.
Amish Weekend. I remember I was at tennis practice and my dad came and got me early and we went to the gas station to get some water jugs and it was like insanity. And I was 14, 15. So I spent the whole weekend at my friend's house and we just played Monopoly.
I was lucky because when I'm pregnant, I tend to get Absopure, so I drink pure water. So I had 5 gallons of water in the house.
Did you have the baby that weekend?
No. I got kind of far, and I wanted to have the baby, and then it stalled, and then I turned 35 at the end of October, and Joe was born in November.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Damn it! I thought about it. I was like, August is too early, but I'm not. I'm at the right age.
That's hilarious. What about you, Jill?
I looked over that question. I thought about it. I just keep on keeping on. I just always have been the biggest struggle, I guess, has been to overcome that it doesn't matter what others think,
Yeah.
including family and close friends, because as you and I have talked about before, I've talked about many people. I don't know about you, Jane, but most people just don't want to take our class or come to us regular. It's like they're just not into it. They're not ready. I've come to terms that I don't take it personal anymore. They're not ready. And because it takes tremendous courage to do the work, to do the inner work. And I keep on doing my inner work. And especially when a close loved one or a grown child, you don't know, you're not as positive as you think, or you're still this or that. And it's like, you've been working on it. Just last year in the summer, I went to my mentor. She's almost 90, and I put my hands on her table because I talked about some issue in life. And she goes, "Oh, honey, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "Oh, no." And so I put my head down, and I'm just like, I thought I'd gotten it, and didn't believe I still had to keep going through it.
And then, keep working on it.
Keep working on it.
Yeah, because so 2021, I was like in great yoga. I was doing yoga every day. I was in great shape, and I felt more spiritual that year. And then it kind of faded. And as 2023, I feel like I was like really learning business, but I was kind of getting away from that like everyday spiritual practice, which is a bummer. But life ebbs and flows. There's a business quote that says something like, your customers. I can't think of it. Something about like your family's never going to be your customers.
Right.
Like you'll be closer to your customers or your clients than your family ever will.
Because it's that hobby. It's that heart connection. It's like when we see our clients, we're not going down the rabbit hole with them. We're going to acknowledge it. We're going to honor it and respect they're going through it. And then with tools and practices to see them whole and pull them up by the bootstraps to understand motivations.
So if I were to put that bad experience in a nutshell, it was that my intuition told me and I couldn't avoid it anyway. It was the opposite of aha. It was, I got a bad feeling. Would you get the rental car early? Will you do this? And my husband didn't. Now, I had no clue that we were losing power. I just knew I really needed him to get that rental car and, be able to get home as soon as things shifted at the plant in Toronto. So I think that having that loss of aha, like, I know better, is the other end that sometimes motivates us so well.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do with people is meet them where they are. I think when I was younger, I had a lot more intensity. I mellowed so much, right? I got to tell you, my husband tells this joke all the time. For 30 some years, he's been telling people she talks less and she sleeps more than when I met her. And probably for like about the last 10, 15 years, friends of mine made a rule and I promised I would sleep 3 hours every night, whether I thought I needed it or not. So I do sleep a lot more now than I did when I was younger.
I tried to sleep, like 4 hours, 5 hours a night. And then my body was just like,
sometimes,
no.
I'm a little hyper. But I think then what I've been trying to do with my classes is meet people at a smaller place. I'm not trying to build them up to get over a high hurdle. I'm trying to lower the hurdle. The math isn't that hard. Let me just get you this part in. Astrology is not that hard. Let me get you this part. You already know some of this. You already know some tarot, right? Have you ever said, call a spade a spade?
Yeah.
Well, then you know that the spades or the sword suit are a hard suit that says are hard things. That's, we live with it in our language.
Yeah.
You know the Two of Hearts means. Well, then I guess you know the Two of Cups means. And the same in astrology. You know what fire is. You know when you're angry and hot and hot under the collar and Mars is red. Everybody knows Mars is red, right? It's a red planet.
Yeah.
Well, the red is the color of anger and hot. And
that's chunking it down.
Yeah.
It's chunking it down. I learned that in energy school from Jan Nagy. She taught us
She's great.
We can't look at the whole year for every single thing, especially dealing with grief. I use this analogy a lot with my grief circles don't worry about the next 6 months or the next 2 weeks. How about getting through the morning, to get through lunchtime, to get through the afternoon and your dinner, but getting through the night. Everyone has their challenge, but one day at a time, one holiday at a time. And that's with everything. Nurses would come in. Oh, I'm setting up this program for system-wide nursing program. I don't have time to come in for any energy healing or meditation. I'm like, you're doing it backwards. You have to set yourself up from the inside out.
There's a quote that says you should meditate 20 minutes a day unless you're really busy, and then meditate 40.
Yes.
Yes. And then with my students, okay, let's start with 5 minutes. Let's do 5 minutes, and then every hour or so, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
In your breath, grounding, and meditation class, you said do 11 breaths. And so on the weekends, not before school, but I'll have the kids come sit with me before tablets and whatever. I'm like, this is what we're doing. And we'll do some like warming up yoga stretches. And then I make them do, or strongly encourage, I shouldn't say I make them.
Yeah.
Taskmaster.
11 breaths where we breathe in fully, hold it for a few seconds, breathe out, and then during, sometimes they'll be like, why are we doing this? But then they'll ask me, are we doing that again tomorrow morning? So I got that from you.
And then when they're at school and someone bullies them, or they didn't get the score they wanted on a test, or anything that they're frustrated, have them go into the bathroom, sit on the toilet, boys included, and just breathe 11 times. I did that with every department in the hospital for every shift. You can do this. You
So
can
mine
chunk it down.
is catch the water in your hands. So go to the bathroom, hold the water in your hands, take a breath, and then throw the water into the sink and say, I release all this energy I don't no longer
that is
need.
good.
Great idea. My aha from class the other
Yes.
night, we were in astrology class. I talked about grounding. Okay, so grounding, for most, it's like grounding the roots of a tree into the earth. And then Jane shared about the water element and the air element. And then there's the fire element. And then I thought of that Asian story about become the tree and bend in the wind and don't break. And then flowing through a stream, I've done group exercises where what's your life been as water? And to capture that, was it currents or eddies or meandering rivers and going with the flow? But with a tree, it goes through all of that. It grounds into the earth. There can be floods and the trees still stand. There can be winds and tornadoes and they still stand. And when there's fires, there is rebirth. So the grounding is on all levels, and I never looked at it like that
There's
before.
a concept called
Thank you.
skying.
Skying.
Skying. So if grounding is dropping your energy into the earth, skying is releasing your energy into the sky. And they're both equally valid. We've made our ground more important than our dreams, than our sky, than our release. And
I like that.
on the tree of life, you ground to manifest something. You bring it through the tree down to the earth sphere, and it's grounded here. There are some things I don't want to ground. I don't want to manifest. Thank you. I release them. Let them float away. Let them sky. Let them release. Let them be. Because ground is so stabilizing, and you got to bend like a willow sometimes. Trees are wonderful examples, but just that opposite of the sky and the
Because
and the
that's
earth.
freeing.
Yes.
You're freeing.
Yes.
Very nice.
And all of us have a bias towards something.
Yeah.
We're more earthy, or we're more airy, or we're more.
And it's something just familiar because
Fiery.
we can learn something different.
Yeah.
There are other keys to feeling better,
Yeah.
just to feel relief.
So we're going to start closing up.
Yay.
We're nearing an hour, but this was a new question that I want to incorporate every episode because I think it's really interesting. So if your anxiety or nervousness had a sound, what would it sound like? So mine would be like, like I'm trying to talk or I'm trying to listen and all I can hear is this like, like in the back. So I have to like ignore that. That's like what my anxiety would sound like.
Mine sounds like a revving car. Vroom, vroom.
Oh.
And I'm like, is this anxiety or excitement?
Oh,
Anxiety, the first image that I got
yeah.
was like on a blackboard.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to hear everyone's different answers.
Mhm.
Yeah, Blackboard. So where can people find you in the future? What are you doing at GVST? What are you doing in life?
I'm super excited. I've got a couple classes coming up at GVST. We have Upside Down Tarot. Basically, Sharice has been teaching this fantastic Tarot 1, 2, and 3, and I've been doing kind of supplemental tarot classes, and this is about reverse cards. A lot of people don't have a good handle on them, and I've got this YOLO, yours, others, less, or opposite for learning it. I'm a 5th grade teacher at heart, so I want to make it, accessible.
Gang.
But and then in the spring, I've got an astrology session coming up where we're going to dig into family astrology. So you're going to get the chart of your husband or your mom or your siblings, and also class around the eclipses. We have 2 eclipses coming up, one March 25th, one April 8th, and I would love to help people get ready for the surprises.
Well, currently I have regular classes twice a month on meditation, including breath and grounding. And then I'm offering an advanced class that's a little bit longer, and I'll incorporate some energy flow with that. But to really come prepared to do your practice, to really level up, to get to those spaces, so to manifest and be mindful. I'm always teaching a class for some sort of tool, toy, fun, whether it's Mandela, whether it's a variety of fun and playful things, but workshops and mini retreats are something that I already have about 4 roughed out for the year. We're looking forward to having a Sunday service once or twice a month at GVST for
I gotta talk to you about that.
Mystical
too.
Musings, Enchanted Mornings, Mystical Musings. There will be different people that will be facilitating it each week, an hour or less, an offering or whatever. I'm not the boss lady yet.
That I want to start in April.
In
So
April.
is what I'm shooting for, yeah.
And in the fall, I'm looking forward to getting some companion circles going for crones, for maidens and mothers. It's the energies, not the actual physicality of what you are. And we have our big event, June 20th on the summer solstice. Come drum with 100 others. It's going to be St. Clair Shores. All that's posted on the website. So that will be big fun. And
I think you hit it all. You have tend your inner garden in March.
Sit Your Arse Down in May.
Those are mini retreats at GVST. Yep.
Fantastic.
And, well,
Oh, my ceremonies. I do a ceremony almost every month. Next week, I know this will air after it. We did one in February for grieving the unborn. Again, it's one of those female things, whether we're starting our periods, whether we're going through menopause, whether we've had a miscarriage or an abortion or stillborn, those are almost like taboo. And that is when we need to be held in a vessel of love and supported. Those need to be talked about. We need to share together. Women are tribes. We're meant to be, and there's nothing more powerful or better alchemy than being with a group of women. Although GVST has men's groups and teens groups, which we have things starting up in the fall for that and currently for men. So check it out.
yes. Can we just make that our new intro or outro? Just delete the one I have. And that was perfect. All right. Well, I appreciate you ladies being here. It means a lot having you around GVST and having just your energy and expertise and all your skill sets. So thank you so much for...
Thank you, Pam.
And thank you, Pam.
you.
You've made a wonderful community. I think that's what's really cool. Whether you want yoga, whether you want a ceremony, whether you want to learn astrology or tarot, you just bring people together, not because you know everything, but because you're excited about knowing more.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. All right. Thanks
you.
for watching or listening to this episode.
See you next time, y'all.
Thanks again for listening. Follow or subscribe to get notified when new episodes come out, which will be every 3 weeks. If you're in the area, stop by GVST and check us out. Have a great day and be safe.